But what I want you to think about is, what do you need right now? What's the focus this year? At the time of recording of this podcast, what's your team focused on? Is it capturing the attention of new clients? Is it elevating the experience of existing clients? Or is it creating advocates of those clients? And once you can answer those questions, you know exactly where to jump. So you can then just go to that chapter if you want to and see some of the strategies that you could use. What we call systems of elevation. How do you elevate the experience for not just the client, but the team? Because the team is responsible for delivering the experience. That's why you can't do one without the other.
Welcome to the Intangible Brand, where we explore the connection between employee experience and client experience and the hidden forces that make brands stick. I'm Jerry Gennaria. Today, I am happy to have Jill Davis, Chief Strategy Officer at Cline, joining me as co-host. Carl is occupied, so Jill is going to be along for the ride today. I'm super excited to have her. Jill works closely with Cline on strategy, experience, and growth. So I think she's going to be the perfect voice to complement our guest today. And speaking of our guest today, we're joined by Neen James. She's a leadership strategist, a keynote speaker, and the author of several books on attention and experience, including her newest book, Exceptional Experiences. And her work challenges leaders to rethink how attention, intention, and design shape the way people experience brands, cultures, and relationships. So we're super excited to dig into what it really means to create experiences that make people feel seen, heard, and valued. So Neen, thank you for being here.
G'day, what an experience this has been for me already. The pre-work that you gave me, the way you welcome people. Thank you. I'm absolutely honored to serve.
Awesome. So, Neen, you've spent years, I think, helping leaders think differently about this idea of attention and focus and experience. And we're all about experience, customer and employee experience on this show. What was the moment that made you realize that exceptional experiences deserve their own framework and writing an entire book about it?
You know, it's such a great question, Jerry. And I have the privilege of being the confidant of many CEOs of luxury and legacy brands. And so in my one-on-one work with them, when I was doing their strategic planning, when I was working with their teams, they were always asking me about my frameworks. I love a good framework, like I know you all do as well. And so I thought, that's really interesting. You know, there's something to this. But when I had the privilege of completing the luxury mindset research study, which I'm sure we're going to jump in today, and that was with the fabulous Susan Baer, who I know has been a great episode, a guest for you on
Absolutely.
episode 14. When I did the research study and we published this, so many of the luxury brands were asking me, how do I apply this in my company?
Yeah.
And so when you take all of these messages that your clients give you and you want something that is able to be scaled, a book makes it easy for everyone.
Right.
So if, for example, you're listening to this and you're a person who loves to do it themselves, the book will give you the framework. It's the playbook on how to do this. And so really it's an extension of the consulting and speaking I was doing already, Jerry. And what I found is literally like chief experience officers are picking up the book at the airport and they're like, tell me how to do this in my company, which has been really lovely. And so when you have expertise, you all know this because of the work you do with architecture firms and engineering firms. You know, Jill, from a strategy point of view, that if you can take out of your brain the way that you're thinking about something and you can share it with the world, a book is an easy way to do that. So that's
Yeah.
what I did.
Well, you say it's
Absolutely,
an
and I will
easy
tell
way,
you
but I'm working on writing a book and have been for 3 years, so it's not as easy as all that. It's just a matter of finding the time, I think.
The book will enter the world when it's ready, I think. Sorry, Jill, you were going to add something as well.
I was just gonna say, how many books have you written now? This is
Okay, so I have 4 books with my name only on the front cover, but I've contributed to 10 books. And so one of the things that's really interesting about books, and for people who are listening to this, or I think everyone has a book inside them, Jerry. So just to make it, make sure you feel better about that. There's so many ways you can share your intellectual property with the world, right? You can share it in an actual published book or a digital book. And I think for me, I've had the privilege of self-publishing. I've been traditionally published, and this is what I work with Page Two, who are my partners for exceptional experiences. They're what we call a hybrid publisher. So
Mm,
even Jerry, in the world of publishing, just like in the world of architecture, engineering, and strategy, there's so many different ways you can do something.
right.
But what I know to be true is that there are ways that we can increase this opportunity between the employee experience and the client or customer experience. And if you give people a playbook, in the case of a book or an online program, which makes it easy for them step by step, which is literally what the book does for people, as you've already identified, that's a fantastic way to elevate your brand. We talk about the intangible brand here at this podcast, but if you want to really accelerate your brand, publishing your work is a way for it to have a ripple effect across the planet. A
Yeah.
book does that.
Yeah. I love that. Right. So early in the book, you talk about luxury being an experience. It's not about things. For some of us, I don't know that we think of ourselves as being a luxury brand. So what do you want those leaders who don't think that they're a luxury brand to really understand about what you're trying to communicate?
Jerry, this is such a fascinating question because I think luxury is a very divisive word. I think people associate luxury with elite or unapproachable or fancy boutiques or fancy cars. And while, yes, some of that is true, I'm on this mission to change the narrative around the word luxury. I think luxury is both inclusive and exclusive. And by that, I mean it's inclusive because I think people deserve luxury every day, right?
Mhm.
And we can get into that in a different way. So I think we all deserve luxury. Our clients deserve a luxury experience. Our team deserves to feel like they're the most important part of our organization. But luxury is also exclusive because you can roll out the red carpet experience for your team. You can roll out the red carpet experience for your clientele. And so I'd love to change our thinking around luxury. What's really interesting is when we had referenced the lovely Susan Bayer of Audience Audit, when I went to her to do my research study, like so many people who are clueless about research, I said to her, okay, so luxury is a mindset. So just make sure I'm right. Go do a research study to make sure I'm right. Now, as she told you on episode 14, people like me make the mistake of approaching research like that. So she came back to me and she said, Neen, there's not one luxury mindset, there's four.
Right.
That opened a completely different conversation to me. And so, if you are listening to this, understand that in the book, Exceptional Experiences, I have manufacturing, medical, media. Yes, I have hoteliers, and yes, I have some fabulous luxury travel brands that I work with. But these principles I've applied to an emergency room in a hospital system. So you don't have to be a luxury product to provide a luxury level of service. And so one of the key findings of the research study was not just that I was wrong. It's not just one mindset. Okay. That was,
Yep.
Susan was very clear about that. But here's the thing I loved about the research study is it also gave us two additional findings. And this is why I want to encourage listeners to invest in research studies. Because yes, they can validate some things, but they can make you think completely differently about
Yep.
things. Two findings that I loved was that people use luxury as a reward for hard work.
Mm.
Interesting. And
Mhm.
the second thing that I loved, which confirmed a belief I've always had since I was a little girl, and that is that luxury is about experiences, not things. Jerry, I don't come from luxury. I was raised by a single mom.
Yeah.
My mom would clean houses. She picked lettuce. She sold fruit on the side of the road. But no matter how busy my mom was or how tired she was, at the end of a shift, she would walk through a community garden and she would pick a flower and she would bring it home to us. Now, in Australia, I lived in a caravan, and in America, we call that a trailer park. And so my mom would bring this flower home and she would put it in a glass. We called it a vase because we felt so fancy. And she reminded us as little girls that we all deserve beauty. We all deserve to have this awe and wonder in the world. And that was our luxury, was this beautiful flower in a glass in our little home. And so I think my mom was the one who first demonstrated to me, Jerry, that luxury truly is about experiences, not things. She told us as little girls, it doesn't matter about the money and the things. It's how you make people feel. It's how they feel seen, heard, and valued, exactly what you said in your opening comments. And so I think that's a luxury we can all give someone the gift of our undivided attention. the luxury of time. These don't cost anything, but they are a luxury to the receiver.
Right.
I love that. So, in your book, you just mentioned too that there were 4 distinct mindsets.
Mm,
The one that stood out to me, and I think a lot of it is because I identify with your background as well. I had a single mom who had to raise
mm.
kids, and it was tough. I will say I wish it was a flower that was my luxury item, but I'm gonna be honest, and you can tell that I live in America, it was McDonald's. We were so
Whatever
excited when we
works.
got to go
Yeah,
to McDonald's. That was our
yeah.
luxury
And
moment.
you can have a Happy Meal with that little free toy. Awesome. Yeah,
Exactly.
I hear you. I get it.
But you do have people, and I think I fall into this category and sometimes still do, that's the reluctant and removed, where
Mhm,
luxury is just too hard. So
mhm.
you could have fallen into that path, but you chose a different one or a different mindset. How do you how do you handle that mindset, basically?
It's so funny to me, and I love. Thank you for sharing your story because I think it's always so great to hear people's stories and why they make the decisions they do. And so much of it is attributed to the things that we've experienced when we're younger, right? I remember debating this with one of my friends, and you read about him in the book. And he and I, one time he said to me, it's like, "Neen, luxury is unnecessary." And I was like, "Wait, what? Like, how are we friends? You also need to know about this human. He is a philanthropist. He is more generous than so many people. He has the top tier status in hotels, the top tier status on airlines." And, we were having this debate, and I was like, "Well, don't like pay extra to drive through the fast lane so you can get somewhere quicker." And what we understood about him, Jill, was his luxury is time. So for my reluctant and removed person, to them, they think, and so, with the 4 luxury mindsets, this is a really fascinating one because the reluctant and the removed mindset, they do believe luxury is hard. They believe that luxury brands don't understand them. They just want to find ways to get somewhere faster. So luxury of time is really important to them. And so when you're working with a reluctant and the removed mindset, you want to share with them how your brand, your service, your product, so those of you listening from the professional services point of view, you want to show how you're going to save them time, save them hassle. Every time you ask them to fill in another form, every time you send them meeting requests for like an hour and a half, they're like, who has that time? So to speak the luxury language of someone who's reluctant and removed, like my friend, you want to share how you're going to streamline, save time, hassle free, right? So think about someone who's really married this well, and that's someone like the Ritz. Now, I use the Ritz as an example for something different in my book, but here's what is interesting if you've ever had the privilege of being part of the Ritz brand, they only ask their clients to enter information once. It's a choice they made because they know a conflict point for people is every time they have to fill out a form. Think about it when you check into a hotel. If you have to open your computer and enter your room number and your name for the Wi Fi every single time, it's a little conflict point. It's
Right.
annoying, right? For the reluctant and removed, they're like, why are you making me do this? So, for this mindset, Jill, what we want to think about is share with people that what you're offering them is saving them time, hassle, and energy, and that's their luxury language. That's important.
My favorite line in the book, and I won't get this exactly right, but you said, we sometimes struggle to define the perfect luxury experience, but we instantly recognize the opposite. And
Yes.
I think if we think about experiences in that way, it's not necessarily about luxury being 4-star or being diamond class or champagne even, but that idea of removing friction from the experience is absolutely huge. I think it's the number one lesson I've taken away from the book to,
Yes.
really try to bring into our organization. So,
Imagine if, can I just build on that for one
yeah.
second? Thinking about your listener, imagine if we asked our employees, what are the conflict points? What doesn't feel like luxury about us? What frustrates you about us? Whenever you're going to get your benefits and you have to talk to 10 people, does that annoy you, right? And if we asked our clients, like, what are some of the conflict points? If we're sending them too many emails, the meetings are too long, or there's too many versions of the drawing that we're showing them, and they just want to see like the final 2 suggestions. If we identify these conflict points for our client and for our team, imagine how much more luxurious the experience is if we just pay attention to what they tell us.
Mm.
Some people love chatbots because they don't have to talk to a human and they can get things done really quickly. Some people hate them. They just want to talk to a human who can solve the issue
Right.
immediately.
Yep.
But if we know our clients and we understand this is the kind of service level that they anticipate, this is what's going to be helpful for them. Maybe we have to offer both. I love talking to Apple through a chatbot to solve my own issue. But if I physically have to go into a store, that's a whole process. I'm not
Mhm.
opposed to it, but because I travel and my life is very scheduled, that's a different choice for me. But I have both choices when I work with Apple. Does that make sense to you? So I
Yeah.
think we have to think about identifying what those points of luxury are not. Like, where are those conflict points? And I do talk about that in the book. But ask your team, ask your
Yeah.
clients. Have the courage so that you can elevate your own brand and you can elevate the experience by removing those conflict points.
As
Choice
you
is
were talking,
huge.
that reminded me of something in your book. You talked about, listening with your eyes.
Mm.
So I have to ask you because it's a challenge that we all have. You're right. We're distracted, I believe is what you said in the book. It's not that we're not paying attention. We have so much to pay attention to, so we get distracted.
Mhm.
And I I have that challenge every day with different people. It could be a leader, it could be somebody that I'm training, it could be anything. Um, so when you come against that, especially as a public speaker, as you're, talking with these giant firms that you deal with, what are some of the things that you work on with them so that they are paying attention with their eyes?
So this idea of listen with your eyes is not my genius. Let's be super clear. And I attribute in the book, if you know either my work in Attention Pays, which is one of my books, or Exceptional Experiences, that's the lesson, Jill, I got from my 5-year-old friend, right? Because Donovan is his name. He and I were debating something very significant about like who is cooler, Superman or Batman. And he got so frustrated with me that he thought I wasn't listening to him, Jill, that he jumped in my lap. He grabbed my face with his tiny little hands. He turned it towards him and he said, Neen, listen with your eyes. Jill, he was 5. The wisdom of a 5-year-old, right? Kids know how to do this.
Mm.
Kids know how to pay attention, right? Because they haven't been distracted by all the baggage that we bring. I think the number one thing we want to consider is device management because obviously with our devices, we know that they are designed for an addictive algorithm. We understand the science behind it. And yet, we still make technology more important than people. So, like, we're walking to our meetings like this instead of actually looking up and saying hello to people when we enter a space, right? And so, one thing that I would suggest with leaders is just really think about your device management. If you're having one on ones with your team, close your laptop so you can give them the gift of your undivided attention. If you're meeting a client before they sit down at the restaurant to have a meal with you, so you can go over the drawings that you've created for them or the experience you're trying to create, make sure your cell phone is off the table. Make sure your cell phone is in your bag. Like use the elevator as a lift to silence it or put it on airplane mode. I use airplane mode all the time. And then when you get back in the elevator or the lift, then put it back on. But we need to have these little systems to pay more attention. I call these systems of elevation. Leaders can do it instantly by thinking through device management, closing the laptop, putting their phone away. One of the studies that I shared in my book, Attention Pays, is if a cell phone is on a table when you are meeting someone for the first time, they are less likely to trust you. If you're already in relationship with that person, they think that you have made your phone more important than actually being in their presence. So there's all these crazy studies even on the presence of a cell phone in the eyesight of someone. So
Oh,
let's
wow.
just take devices off the table and instantly we have a deeper trust with someone. So these are interesting things when we think about the way that our brain works. And while I won't get into the brain chemistry, we talk about that in Attention Pays. We do talk a tiny bit about it in Exceptional Experiences book. But one of the first things I work on with my leaders is eliminating potential distractions, i.e., device management, and then thinking about the book, which Jerry, you got immediately. The stealth message of this book, secretly just between the three of us, is how do you make people feel seen, heard, and valued? And
Mm.
one of the
Yep.
best ways to make someone feel seen is give them the gift of your undivided attention. Same thing when you go home tonight, if you have the privilege of sharing your life with someone, Imagine actually sitting down and eating a meal and looking at them instead of the television and your phone and your laptop open on your lap. Like, imagine just having like a date without a cell phone. How often have you been to restaurants and you see a hot date and both of them are like sitting there on their phone?
Yep.
There's literally restaurants in New York City that will discount your check if you leave your cell phone with the maitre d'. I mean, we're paying people to pay attention. It's crazy town. And think about the beautiful work. Like, you don't know this about me, but I wanted to be an architect when I was a little girl. That was like, I was the only girl in my high school who did technical drawing because only the boys were allowed to do that way back then. The girls all did home economics. I didn't want to do that. I was the only girl in my high school who did technical drawing because I wanted to be an architect. Because there is beauty in the things that we create in the world that have legacy that lasts for a lifetime. If we want people to step back in awe and admire this incredible design that we've created, or this legacy building, or this hospital we've built, whatever it is that you're doing, that takes our eyes, it takes attention. So
Mhm.
if we're expecting that of the end person for the work that we do, then we need to gift the attention along the way so that that makes it even more special.
Yeah. So good. So good.
Yeah. Just so you know, Neen, we're hiring if you still want to be that architect. Just put that out there.
Oh, honey, my attention to detail. I remember like a millimeter made a massive difference in the drawings when I was at school, and I was like, oh man, can I just like strategically say this is what it's going to look like? You all are so beautifully precise as architects, but it's still, I still enter every city with awe and wonder around the buildings. So I am captivated by what you do. One of my clients in Philadelphia, Tantillo Architecture, I loved working with them because they were bridging this gap between the client experience and the team experience because they're investing so much in their team. And watching the way that they transformed the beautiful Bellevue Hotel, such a beautiful piece in Philadelphia, was mind blowing. I love what you all do. It's incredible.
It's awesome. Can you talk a little bit about the experience elevation model? So, we've talked a little bit about the four mindsets, and I encourage people to look at the book and understand these four different mindsets because they are quite different, and managing them, I think, is very important. But you put together a framework, as you said at the beginning, about how to do this. So maybe just as a starting point, can you give us the 30,000-foot view of the elevation
Sure.
model?
Absolutely. And just with the luxury mindset, everyone listening to this can also find out their own mindset, Jerry. So I'll share with you a free assessment they can take to less than 5 minutes.
Great.
And they can share it with their team as well. So they can find out their own luxury mindset as well. And then I'll send them an email afterwards. You don't get spam, so don't worry about that. But it breaks down your mindset for you. So I will make sure you get that link too. The experience elevation model was designed because all of the work that I do, you know that I work with a lot of CEOs and their teams, is I know all my CEOs, like so many people on this call, are measured by two things: mind share and market share.
Mm.
Are you top of mind for the clients you want to work with and your existing clients? And are you top of market? Do people invest in you? And so when I know they're being measured on that, all of the systems I design for the consulting that I do is about helping them really drive revenue, right? And attract the attention of the clients they want to serve. The model was based very much about how do you capture attention at that first level, all the way through to how do you create advocates of clients who love you, who then become an extension of your marketing team. So they're out there telling the world, you need to hire this engineering firm because what they do is genius. So that's how the model is. So at the highest level, there are five of the what we call luxury levers, or levers in America. You say levers. I'm going to say levers for the benefit of my sanity. But one of the things that we talk about at the first level is how do you truly entice someone to even pay attention to you? What are the techniques, like the stories you tell, the origin of what you do, the collaborations that you have to entice someone to think, oh, why should I pay attention to that brand? That's very interesting. A
Yep.
podcast like what you do is a genius way to do that because you're telling the stories of people that can help benefit the people who you want to work with.
Right.
Then we move to the luxury lever of invite. This is where you're really inviting them to give them a sense of belonging. This is where understanding your luxury mindset and theirs so you can speak their luxury language is really important here. Then we move into, so we've gone from we've gone entice, invite, and then we excite. This is one of my favorite of the luxury levers. This is where we're trying to really excite them to work with us, but also get them excited because we're doing things differently.
Mm,
This is about being share worthy. This is about giving them things that they want to tell others about. This is engaging the five senses. And, I think about this from an architecture point of view. There are so many ways we can engage multiple senses. But as you're listening to this, I want you to think about things like think about smell. Our sense of smell is the deepest emotional connection we have with a brand. So if you can talk about the smell, if you can think about hotel lobbies you've walked in and there's this incredible smell, the Tampa edition is the same as the Madrid edition, which is the same as the New York edition hotel, because
yeah.
they all use the same signature scent, right? So we talk in this level about at this luxury lever is really thinking about how do you engage even more of the senses? So entice, invite, excite, and then we move to delight. This is where you show your clients and your team you know them so well, and you start to anticipate needs they didn't even know they had. And so at
Mm,
this level, this is really thinking differently about the way that we have the opportunity to serve the clients we have. And then my favorite of all of the luxury levers is ignite. That's the fifth, because this is where you're truly making what you do so referable that people want to know, how do I refer you? This is where you surround their entire lifestyle. And I think this is something that would appeal to some of the professional services listening to this, where people say, who else can I tell about my
mm,
experience of working with your company? Right. So, what this model is designed to do is you don't have to follow it in a linear way.
okay.
You could be new in business and you might be trying to capture the attention of people that you want to start to serve. I would encourage you to start at that entice lever. But maybe you've been in business for such a long time. You've got clients who've been with you for 15 plus years and they love you, but you'd love to get more referrals from them.
Mm,
So maybe you start looking more at the excite and delight of the luxury levers and start looking at those strategies. What I'm finding with the clients that I have the privilege of working with is depending on the journey they have, depending on how long they've been in business, depending what their goals are, they jump into that luxury lever. I have so many clients who are using the book as the playbook for their whole year. I've got cruise lines who are doing it. I've got one of my hospitals is doing it. It's special. One of my hoteliers has bought it for like everyone on their team, and what they're using it is saying, okay, as a team guide, and we've got book clubs who are using it. I've got book club guides. If that's helpful, we can share that with
mm,
your listeners as well. But what I want you to think about is what do you need right now?
mhm,
What's the focus this year? At the time of recording of this podcast, what's your team focused on? Is it capturing the attention of new clients? Is it elevating the experience of existing clients? Or is it creating advocates of those clients? And once you can answer those questions, you know exactly where to jump. So you can then just go to that chapter if you want to and see some of the strategies that you could use. What we call systems of elevation. How do you elevate the experience for not just the client, but the team? Because the team is responsible for delivering the experience. That's why you can't do one without the other.
yeah, that's super practical. I appreciate that. Um, I'm wondering, when you're thinking about the mindsets and, trying to deliver the right kind of experience, you mentioned the diagnostic tool that you have that I can do, right, to understand my own mindset.
Mhm.
How do I understand what my client's mindset is? Is there
Yeah,
questions to ask or
there are, but I think it depends on the kind of business you're in.
hmm,
Right? So when you think about we have metrics out there, net promoter score, like you all have KPIs in your business, you all have a million dashboards. You all
right.
know what to measure. Like honestly, you all know what to measure. And yet, sometimes we forget to really ask the client about their actual experience. And we're too scared sometimes to hear the answer.
Mm,
So, what if we just asked our clients, we loved working with you on this project. It's been a really long project. We've had like some contingency plans along the way. Things haven't always gone as they've occurred, we thought, et cetera, et cetera. But if you could share with us three things we could do that would have enhanced your experience, what would they be? Is there anything that you experienced that you think would be something you wouldn't want to experience again? Tell me what
Yeah.
that would be like.
Yeah.
Is there anyone on our team that really was such a phenomenal experience? Could you tell me more about that so I can give them that feedback?
Right.
Is there anything in our process that didn't feel like it was congruent with the brand experience you expected?
Mm.
Tell me about that. I think what happens is we try to automate everything, and I really believe in systems. Systems create freedom, and I'm here for them. Systems of elevation, I love. And yet, in our digital AI world, I think the human connection is what gets results.
Mhm.
So if you are the chief experience officer, if you are the chief strategy officer, if you are, responsible for the delivery of whatever it is you do, schedule time in your calendar to reach out to that person and say, I'm just looking for 15 minutes on your calendar.
Mm.
I would just love to understand before I do the debrief with my team about this project. I just want to hear from you.
Yeah.
Tell me what was your experience with us. Tell me what we could have done better. Tell me what you really loved. Like just to have 3 or 4 questions and then share the results with the team. Too often we're trying to, we ask them to do 50,000 survey questions and then we present it all back and it's a spreadsheet. I don't know about you. I hate a spreadsheet. I know my clients love them, but you send me a spreadsheet, I'm like, just give me the highlights. Like I'm
Yeah.
going to ask Claude, my boyfriend, that's the AI tool I use. Can you please tell me what does this spreadsheet tell me? Like, do you see
Right.
what I'm saying? So there's places for automation, there's places to use technology. But if you are genuine about elevating the experience, which it sounds to me like the people listening to this podcast are, the human connection will win every single time.
Yeah. That's really good. That's good.
So how do you take that process then? And I think about how many employees we have here, our staff members, and
Mm.
we're a what we call a seller doer model. We don't have devoted BD people going out there and pounding the pavement and looking for the
Mhm.
next relationship. It's our people, and they do a really good job with their current clients, and they do a really good job talking to clients. But there's a learning curve. So how do you take your book to the new person who's trying to figure life out at Cline, let's say?
Yeah.
"Hey, this will make your life easier. Let's sit down and talk about this." And you use that elevation model. Like, what are the best practices that you've seen with that?
Maybe one of the sections that might make it easier, let me just highlight a section that might be good, Jill, for people who they don't have business development in their title, but all of our team members are business development because they're
Right.
advocates for our company, right? There's an example in there of a client that I've had for probably 15 plus years by the name of Bruce White from Kendall Johnson. Now, they're an insurance brokerage, but he, I think, gives one of the best tips in the book. And he said, we need to surround the lifestyle of our clients. And what he does is he says to them, we love having you as a client here at JKJ. Is there anyone else that you think would benefit from us talking to? We get too scared to ask for the referral. But Bruce is saying, let's just surround the lifestyle. We're already in relationship with them. They've had a great experience with us. But what if each of our team members just added the question, it sounds like you've had a really great experience working with us still. Is that correct? They say, yeah. And just say, do you know anyone else like you who would benefit from me having a conversation with? That's it. And then you would say, Jill, would you mind making an email introduction for us? I would love to talk to them. That's as simple as it can possibly be, but we get too scared to ask. And that's crazy because if we believe in the product, we believe in the service that we provide, we're elevating the experience. Let's have the courage to start there. What's the worst thing they can say? No, I had a terrible experience with you. I never want to do business with you again. No, I'm never going to tell anyone. I would hope that's not the experience. But what I find is in my profession, part of my business is as a keynote speaker. And the more you speak, the more you speak. So very frequently at the end of a presentation, someone will come up to me and give me their business card and say, I love this. Can you come talk at my company? And I say, sure, I would be honored to do that. Because the more you deliver these exceptional experiences, the more you'll be asked to deliver exceptional experiences. So Jill, I would start with the team member and as part of their onboarding and say, this is the model we use here, if that's true for you. And given that business development, while it's not a KPI, it's something the whole team does at Cline. What I'd love you to pay attention to is when someone has a great experience, ask them if anyone else would benefit from working with Cline. Because, gosh, I'd just love to have a conversation with them. That's it. That's it. Now, Jerry, you asked about the luxury mindsets earlier. I want our listeners, when they do read this section in the book or you do read the research study, is I want you to pay special attention to the luxury lover,
Mm.
because the luxury lover becomes a massive advocate for a brand. The luxury lover, their mindset is luxury. Sure, I deserve it. Everyone deserves it. We all deserve it every day. And a luxury lover, here's why I need people to focus on this, especially if you're in business development, is because they have a big mouth. They will tell everyone they know about you. So if they have a great experience with Cline, they talk about you at the country club, in their PTA meetings, to their neighbors, to their friends. They will personally introduce you on email. They'll be like, oh my gosh, have you worked with Cline? You need to know Jill. Let me connect you. Luxury lover mindset. They love talking about you. They are fantastic advocates of brands. So that's the people you also want to spend some time. For those of you who are responsible for strategy, growth, or sales, they're the people that you want to start thinking, how do I attract that luxury lover? And you already have them as clients. You just need to identify who they are.
Great
So good.
advice. I love
Yeah.
it.
Um, we, as in professional services, we spend a lot of time responding to clients, being available to clients, and I think that in this conversation, that's a big part of delivering a luxury experience. We've talked about attention, we've talked about being intentional, but I'm wondering, is there a time when being responsive, being available actually starts to erode the quality of the experience instead of elevating it? And how do we manage
Mm.
that that line?
Jerry, I just got in trouble for this from one of my team today. So, what you're asking about is, look, I am a work in progress, like everyone who's listening to this podcast, just for, for full transparency.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think happens is we think experience means always being available, always being on call, responding as soon as the email comes in, giving extra time at the meeting, going above and beyond the contract, even though the agreement is finished. Like, oh, just do this one thing. I'll just do this one job. I'll just. But what that does is you're not necessarily delivering the most exceptional level of your service. And so we have to think about, as employers and employees, what boundaries we want to put around things.
Mm.
Which, if you think about it, one of the systems of elevation that I think is really important but very boring is the contracting process that we have, the agreements that we have in place with people. I think up front, when we are scoping out a project for people, we know there's going to be contingencies. We know things don't always go according to plan. But I think we have to be more specific in the deliverables so that we are educating not just the person who's receiving our services, but we're also holding ourselves to that high standard. Because every time we add a bullet point, compromise something, don't show up in our best self, we're eroding that experience.
Mm.
And so I would encourage people, and by the way, this is much easier to talk about than do. Because we choose these professions where, for example, I always think of architects as like an artist, right? So they have this beautiful creative side to them. There's also a really boring side to that too. There's got to be compliant and meet regulations, and it's got to be within a certain
Right.
time frame, right? And so we have to be able to balance that. What I've learned to be true for myself is to have very clear, documented agreements of what the end deliverable is going to be. And then outside of that agreement, have that conversation. Maybe you have to add more, maybe it's a different fee, but also make sure that you deliver above and beyond what you've agreed so they have this phenomenal experience with you. But if it's truly outside the scope of that, then you might need a new scope of work. And that's the challenge with, scope creep is it's such a hard thing to deal with in the professional services industry because you're like this one email, this one meeting, this one trip, whatever it is for you. Believe me, I get it. But I think about what some of the best brands in the world do. And what they understand is that that experience, they need it to be something that can be replicated so that every time you stay at a Ritz property, you get a Ritz level of service, which means they've invested in the onboarding, the training, the CRM, the contracting. Every part of the process is the Ritz level. And you might be a manufacturer, you might be an engineer, and you're like, we're not the Ritz. I know, but you can provide a Ritz level of service.
Mm.
And it's really thinking through eliminating conflict points And also paying attention to when things do go outside of the contract scope and thinking, okay, next time we want to think about how we're going to handle that. That's why I think, especially because so many people listening to this have really good project management skills, one of the things we skip is that debrief. We have to really focus on the debrief. What would we do differently next time? My team, we have this rule every time I speak for an audience. I'll say to one of my team what was good, what was bad, what was ugly. Hopefully, there's no ugly, but life. And
Right.
so we then think about what do we learn differently next time I speak to that room or that association or whatever. So just have a simple question that you can do to avoid that. I also think one of the things that can be challenging is when you do something that is outside of the scope because it's really amazing and the client has bad experience. You've set a precedent.
Hmm.
So, unless you can empower your team to allow that to continue, right? Or you have budgeted for that to happen, you have to be really conscious of that. Let's go back to the Ritz. They have a budget per employee that they can use per guest, and that is in their documented process as part of their onboarding experience. It's genius. But we don't all have Ritz budgets to empower our team. So that's why I think the simplicity of adding an agenda item to your team meeting is, hey, did anyone do anything that was an exceptional experience this week? Tell us about that. Is it something we can all follow? Is it something we can be inspired by? So give people some opportunity to do it, but debrief it. Let's talk about it in our team meetings.
Yeah.
Costs you nothing, just a little bit of time, but it might inspire something new. Does that answer your question, Jerry?
It does, and I think it highlights something that I think is important to separate out the difference between the deliverables, the work that you're performing for the fee that you're getting, and how you deliver it, the actual experience of that, and some of the
Mhm.
elements, like what prompted the question about how responsive are we, how much time do we give for the things that are sort of in the gray area of the contract really comes down to what is the kind of experience that we're trying to create and how much of what the client is paying for is that experience versus the expertise and the deliverable, and how do we kind of bridge those two things together.
Yeah, and I think this is the year that everyone listening to this could get really, really honest about what is their billable, about
Mhm.
what is that rate, about what is that investment. Because if we truly look at the costs more, if you just look at the cost of it, right?
Mhm.
And chances are you're giving way above and beyond maybe what you're actually charging for. And that's a choice. You can make that choice for sure. Or do you also have to have the courage sometimes to maybe increase your pricing, to
Mm.
add headcount, to extend the timeline of the project, right? Because sometimes I think if, especially for those in business development or those of people who are listening who might own their own firm and they're like, but I just want the account, I just want the contract, I just. And so they shortchange themselves because they're like, well, I might as well just take it and say yes, and then it can end up costing you a lot. It can cost you in energy, in your health, in your team, etc. So this could be the year you revisit your pricing model, your
Yeah.
deliverables, the agreements you have. Maybe you have tiered pricing instead of a set price. Like, there's no right way to do this, by the way. It's just thinking about how we truly engaging the team and empowering them to deliver the type of service we want. I'll never forget, I spent a lot of time in the Washington, D.C. area, and I love Alexandria. It's one of my favorite
Yeah.
towns in America. It's got cobblestone streets. Some of you have people in Washington, so you know. So I remember I checked in the first time I went to the AKA Alexandria. The Chris is the general manager there, and there was this beautiful dog in the foyer. Now,
Hmm.
what you don't know about me is I am an animal lover. If there is a pet anywhere, I am fearless. I will play with it. And when I'm traveling all the time, if there's a cat or a dog, you better believe I want to play with them. So I'm on the floor in the hotel lobby, luxury hotel, and I'm like cuddling with this dog. His name's Senna. Loved him. It was amazing. So I met Senna. What I didn't know is someone had taken a photo of that.
Hmm.
Fast forward, I loved my experience at the AKA Alexandria so much that the next time I checked into my hotel, there was Senna in the lobby. I was like, "Oh my, it's so great to see you again, Senna!" And I was so excited. And I said, "Oh yeah, we knew you were checking in, so we wanted to make sure Senna was here to greet you." Here is that amazing level of experience. It could have stopped there, but it did not. The team were all sort of smiling like they had a little secret. So I check into my room, or wouldn't you know, I walk into my room. There is a framed photo of Senna and I from my last visit on on the table. But wait, there's more. There was a love note from Senna that said, "I'm so glad you're back," and a paw print inside the letter. Now, there was also a letter from Chris, the general manager of the hotel, who was, but I didn't care about that. Oh my gosh. Now, let me tell you, maybe that cost them $5. I don't know. But that experience, every time I'm in Alexandria, you better believe I want to stay at the AKA. And I've since experienced other AKA properties for them because their experience is amazing. When I stayed at Washington Circle, they had a little caricature done of me, like celebrating my book, like genius. But what they've done, Jerry and Jill, is they've systemized thoughtfulness.
Yeah.
They've empowered their team to get creative so that they can find out about their guests, know what's important to them, and then change that. We can all do that, especially those of us who are spending a lot of time with our clients. If you're having a Zoom meeting with a client and you know that they drink matcha, what if you had matcha delivered by the local matcha shop or the First Watch breakfast place or whatever, so that when you had your meeting, a matcha arrives at their door in time for your meeting? Like one of my clients, Comcast, we did this for our team where we delivered breakfast and it was phenomenal. And that's engaging the sensory experience, sight and taste and smell. Amazing. So there's so many ways we can get more creative. We just have to think about elevating the experience.
Mm.
And I feel like you're going down the path of something that you talk about in your book, and it's not the flip side of this, but the people who are doing that for you, would you say that it's their champagne moment, or maybe this is a champagne moment for you?
Yes. Okay, for people who don't know what a champagne moment is, let me explain. I am a champagne lover, but maybe it's sparkling water for you. It doesn't have to literally involve champagne, but here's my thought. A champagne moment is something that brings you joy, makes you smile. And we can find these champagne moments every day. Maybe it's drinking your water out of a Tiffany cup. I don't know. Pretentious as it is, that makes me happy, right? But think about something that you can do, like my mum with the flower in the vase. That little champagne moment in the day, like, brought joy to our tiny little caravan. Creating champagne moments for others, challenging yourself to make someone smile, bring joy to them is something we can all do. It doesn't have to cost money.
Mhm.
But for some people, a champagne moment might be, playing with their furry baby at the end of the day if they're lucky to do that. It might be sitting in a hotel lobby and watching the staff. If you ever want to train your team on delivering exceptional experiences, give them a budget to go and order a coffee in your local luxury hotel and get them to observe what happens around them. That's the best $10 you're going to spend. Get them to tell the team about it when they come back to the team meeting of what happened. But these champagne moments, I challenge my audiences all the time to find them for ourselves,
Mhm.
but also find them for our clients. It could be a handwritten note that you say, "I loved working on the project with you last year. And if you have any other projects, keep me in mind." Like, what a just think about it, a handwritten note in our digital world where people get 2 to 500 emails a day, they remember that.
Yeah.
And don't tell me your handwriting's bad because I don't care. I'd still rather get bad handwriting on a handwritten note than an email. You know what I mean? So I think we
Yeah.
just need to find these champagne moments. And that's my challenge to your listeners too is what champagne moments could you have for yourself? But what could you do for your team? What could they do for the client? Because if we're providing these moments of joy, like think of like bubbles in a champagne glass. Think of them as like joy bubbles. How many of those joy bubbles could you bring to people today?
Mhm.
There's thousands of decisions we make in a day. Which ones of those could be champagne moments that would just bring someone some joy or make them smile because they will remember, just like I will always, where possible, look for an AKA property because of that one experience with Senna. And Senna has since gone on to be the hotel dog in West Hollywood. And it's amazing to me. So, but I've literally stayed in contact because of that experience.
Right.
What we're looking for with our clients and our team is how do we deepen that emotional connection?
Mhm.
How do we deepen that human connection? Providing these champagne moments that can do that.
Yeah. It takes, I think it takes intentionality, in how we pay attention to our clients, and maybe that's the biggest lesson that we need to take away from this.
Yeah, I think in the book Attention Pays, one of the things that I highlight is it's intention that makes attention valuable.
Hmm.
And what I believe when I wrote Exceptional Experiences, it was the evolution of all the attention work that I was known for. And that is that I think luxury is about human connection. So if attention's about connection, I think luxury is about human connection. It is luxury means different things to different people. And I don't want people to get distracted by the word luxury. If anything, I want you to aspire to think about how can I provide a luxury experience for my team who can then provide a luxury experience for my clients, my patients, my engineering team, like whoever it is that you serve. I want you to think about if we take care of ourselves first and then we take care of our team, it has a ripple effect across the clientele that we stand in service of.
Yeah, that's so good. This has been an absolute masterclass, Neen. Thank you so much for being a part of this.
My privilege.
For our listeners, very much encourage you to check out the book. We'll have links to the book, to the website with the assessment, any of the tools, Neen, that you want to provide. We'll make sure that those are linked. But as we're wrapping up, I'm wondering if there's one thing that our listeners should take away from today's conversation, what would that be?
That luxury is a mindset.
Mm.
And luxury is truly about making people feel seen, heard, and valued. I think we all want that.
Yeah,
I love
so good.
that. Well, we can't let you go until you tell us, is there a book or a podcast that you would recommend? In addition to, I have my copy here too, for those that are listening, holding up Exceptional Experiences. Um, is there a podcast or a book that you would recommend?
It's probably 50,000 that I could recommend. But let me tell you about something I'm experiencing at the time of recording, which I've not finished. So it takes a lot of courage to recommend a book I haven't finished. But I have been experiencing as an audiobook. I'm not a very good audio learner, and I usually like to read an actual book. I'm a physical book girl, but I am listening to the audiobook called Theo on Golden. This book is narrated, and the person who is reading the book or narrating the book uses multiple voices.
Mm.
It is an experience just listening to it. I don't want the book to end. I am scheduling walks just so I can listen to the book. It is changing me as I listen to the book, which sounds very dramatic, I know, but it is beautiful storytelling, incredible descriptions, very focused on generosity.
Hmm.
And I think it is a book that is like, it's like a cozy blanket for your mind. It is truly at this time in our history, I think the world needs more kindness and more generosity. So I really want to recommend if you love to read, Theo on Golden. If you love to listen to a book, the version is just mind blowing. But I haven't finished the book yet, but I'm loving it.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like it's a great experience.
I have it written down.
Yeah. We'll put that in the show notes as well. So, Neen, where can our listeners find you online or learn more about Exceptional Experiences and your work?
Fortunately, there's only one Neen James. So if you Google me and go to my website, it's the central place for everything. You can follow my adventures on Instagram every day or reach out to me on LinkedIn. And if you do reach out on LinkedIn, tell me it's because of the Intangible Brand podcast. And that makes it really easy for us to connect.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you so much. Well,
My
that
privilege.
wraps up another episode of the Intangible Brand. And if you found value in today's conversation with Neen, we'd love it if you would take a moment to follow us or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Your support is really what encourages us to keep doing this and bringing these kinds of conversations to all of you.
And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel. It helps us discover, it helps people discover the show, and you're part of the community when you subscribe.
Yeah, we love that. And we'd love to hear your thoughts too on today's episode, on anything at all. Feel free to leave a review or share your feedback or your questions with us. You can always reach us at hello@theintangible.brand.com. Tell us what you like, what you'd like to hear next.
And you can connect with us on LinkedIn, of course. And if you'd like, you can visit us at theintangible.brand.com for more resources and information about the show.
including all of the wonderful things that we learned from Neen today. So thank you for joining us on The Intangible Brand. And remember, the strongest brands are built on the experiences they create, both for their clients and for their teams.